Where's that at?
See, we have air in ours.
Oh, you guys down there right now?
I'm there with a sweater. There she is.
Hey, Dan. Where's Denise? We should have fetched her up.
There's more chairs over there, guys.
Huh? She's not gonna come? Oh, really? Yeah, she was gonna come by, but she wasn't sure because Dan was in town and stuff, so.
Ketchup? Oh, they're coming back, yeah.
You know,
I trimmed all mine
kind of.
because they're really heavy. And so I turned them and I'm like, what extra I had, so now my garden's full. I can't even walk in it. Yeah, we heard about
Here's Jordan.
There's strawberry. Oh, yeah.
This year she's taking care of me.
All right, everybody, we'll get the meeting started. We'll start with the pledge of allegiance, please.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you all for coming. So we basically have two meetings today. We have our budget hearing and then we have the annual meeting afterwards. So of course, we're going to start with the budget hearing. And if we're at 1, okay. So first thing I'm going to do is explain the budget and how, if some of you got this one here, okay, the general fund budget is your first page. It starts with revenue and expenditures on the first page. The preceding pages break those down, okay? So if you notice, there's a revenue line, so you see the little revenue at the top of the first page here. That is then further broke down on page 2 through all the different sources that comes from. So we have local, state, and federal. We get most of ours from local and state. We get very little from federal. All the federal money goes into and is held in one certain spot because it is reserved for only a few things. Okay, so that's page 2. Page 3 breaks down expenditures by department. So if you look at the expenditures, township government is 100, 101 is trustees, 171 is supervisor, 215. And then if you flip to page 3, you can see all the 101s are the general office expenditures. And then you break it down into the trustee salary, and the supervisor department, clerk department, and so forth and so on. Okay? If you notice, there are 3 vertical lines. You have the original budget we approved last year. The second amended budget is what we're approving today because that's actually what we spent. Some sections we spent less in than we budgeted, some we spent more in, and that's just things that pop up. One of the big ones was cemeteries this year. We had a lot of tree damage in the spring, and then we found some very, very large white pines that had bud damage that we had to take care of. Those are both expenses we didn't plan for, so that one was a higher category. So you amend your budget, adjust your budget where your expenses were at as of this last week for the entire year. And then the 2025, 2026 budget is the final line, the farthest one to the right. Okay, so that's how you read all that. We are budgeting out for next year about 367, okay, for the general fund. For fire, with the heavily rollback fraction that you do, because we're in the final year of that, so this will be our highest rollback that we have. We don't get our full 1.5 mils for the township. It's rolled back to 1.4857. If anybody wants to know what that is all about, I can explain it to you afterwards. It's a very long, complicated process, but it is basically when this is approved over the lifespan of it, you can't collect any more or any less. So as new is added, new houses, new things like that, there's an adjustment fraction so that you don't have to, that you don't collect more than what you was originally approved for the budget. Okay, so if that's why we are at 1.4857. Okay, because if you look at the top line, the taxable value of Norman Township last year was $83 million. This year it's $88 million. So we grew by that roughly a little under $5 million in the year. New houses, houses that sell, that become untapped, all that kind of thing. Increases your taxable value. Fire department is looking about 213 to 220. We have it at 213 right now to operate for the fire millage. Ambulance millage is at 87, because that's a 1 mil. And then the rubbish fund is the one that you've all got letters and things on too. The rubbish fund we're looking at 108, because we are renewing the rubbish, all those, the first letter you got, and then you're gonna get another letter after our next meeting, and then we're gonna approve to redo the rubbish, to keep the special assessment for rubbish at our August meeting. We're looking at, right now, you pay $58.88 for trash. We are looking at going to about $65 to $67 for trash over the next 3 years because of the cost that has increased. Now, I know there's been some out there that says, well, there's plenty of money in the budget. Well, yeah, we get the money in the winter, our fiscal year ends in the summer, and so they don't intersect at the same point. Okay, so there's always, at the end of the fiscal year, there's always money, because we have to operate back till January of next year. That money also didn't include our traffic cleanup. This year was $17,000 we spent on one day. Okay, so that also had to come out. So, but talking to Allied Waste, they said you need to figure about a 5% increase over the next 3 years. So at $65, $67, that'll get you close to that amount.
I'm looking for the line on the rubbish and some of the things you mentioned. Where is it?
Last page. Last page. All these funds. So the first. Okay, so the last page is rubbish. The second to last page is ambulance.
I found it.
Okay, and then fire is the last 2 pages. The page third to last and fourth to last page. Everything else is general fund. Okay. Okay. So that's that. All right. So that's where we'd be at on the rubbish fund. Now, I kind of explained it without boring people too much. Does anybody have any specific questions? And then we'll go into public comment. Yes.
Is the 5% increase over the 3-year term or 5% per year?
They're expecting 5% per year on average. They don't know. He said, I don't know if we'll jump up 10% and then go 2.5, 3. I don't know if we'll jump up 7%. He didn't know. So it was a safe ad. He goes, to be safe, that's what you need to be. Anybody else? Yes.
Can you touch on the increase in the clerk's wage? And the other concern that I have is that non-homesteaders are paying a percentage of the work that the clerk does. I would hope the board would consider that to make some change so that her income is coming out of the respective funds that it should be. I think when I ran an analysis of the last 18 months of checks paid and checks issued, 18 months. General fund was at 37%, 28% fire, 21% ambulance, and 12% budget, or in the rubbish. So right now, the general fund is consuming most, or the majority, of the wages for the clerk to do their accounting, their accounts payable, and their payroll, and their taxes, and all that. So, and then fire, I believe, gets of her wage, 110 comes out, and 40 for ambulance, or vice versa. So there doesn't really seem to be any kind of.
The system set up. So, we have the way our system set up. It's always worked in the past. It seems to come out. You know, she's in here both of them are in here most of the time for the general work and answer questions. So it's not just writing checks.
But those are separate funds. They all have their individual incomes that come
all
in,
come out a little bit
and
from each other.
she's working for them at a percentage.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? And we will talk on the salaries in the next meeting. I'm gonna start that in the next meeting. Okay, go ahead.
I'm just looking here at this park and recreation road charge, whatever it is.
Park and rec, okay, yep.
How does it go like from 20,000 to like 110,000?
Okay, so,
That's what I was.
we are planning on doing a new beach wall. Okay, we've been saving for about 10 years for this. Part of the reason why Mr. McFadden here has ran our fireworks and created the $10,000 to $15,000 a year to run our fireworks, we have able to bank that money. The wooden beach wall was created about, I thought it was 25, but Tim said he put it in about 31 years ago. We are looking at replacing that. We got bids for steel, we got bids for concrete. I'm gonna ask the board in this next meeting to go with Reliable Concrete and Tim Fisher to do the excavating. Reliable said about 75 to 78,000. Tim Fisher's gonna do all the excavating for 5, which shocked me, but he said he's getting older and he wants to do one more thing for his community, and he believes the concrete wall or steel wall will last longer than any of us are gonna be around. Well, maybe not some of the little ones, but yeah, longer than me anyways.
Well, that answers two questions.
So that is a planned budget for that. Yeah, and and we still have to do railing and some electric in here that I have to get bids on, but I'm hoping to have by the next week. So, yeah.
I was just wondering, if that's a big jump in numbers, right?
That's something we actually have budgeted to do this. I'm hoping we start this next fall.
It helps me understand about the fireworks too, so the answer to both my questions.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else? Nope.
Collect your thoughts and make a script. I guess.
Okay. The only way a township board can raise taxes is special assessment. That's your trash. Everything else comes out of your property tax. Okay, so how property tax works is every year your property tax will increase by the rate of inflation or 5% max. Meaning 3 years ago when inflation was 7.9%, your taxes went up 5%. Everybody in this room that owned a home went up 5%. Okay? The year before, it went up 5%. Or the next year it went up 5% because it was 5.2 or 5.4. Last year it was 3.1 or 3.4%. So it's the rate of inflation. The only other two ways that your taxes can increase is if you add on something new. Okay, so if you add on a $20,000 garage, your taxable value goes up $10,000, half, or 50% of taxable state ad valorem, at value. Okay. If you remove a garage and it has a current value of $6, then we would remove that $6. Your taxable value would go from 100 to 94,000. So those are the only two ways that your taxes, when you own a home, you're what they call tax. Every year it goes up by inflation rate. And people say, well, why do you do that? Well, if it costs, and this is a very layman's term, simple way to say it, if it costs $100 in gas to plow that road in front of your house for snow, and gas goes up 5%, it now costs $105. So it helps keep the balanced budget with the county and the services. Nothing we do here that we can do outside of trash or special assessment for like a road, if we wanted to pave a road and we were gonna put a special assessment on those folks. Like we looked at that for, to go to the Robinson Road boat launch, and we started looking at the cost of that 1.5 to 2 miles. those people that live there, because a lot of it's forestry, could never afford it. I mean, it can't be paid. Paid is too expensive right now, okay? Those are special assessments. We have no power to raise your taxes. That is controlled by the state, local county. The state sets that inflationary rate, okay? They set it, like last year, it was wavering between 3.6 and 2.9, and it said, I believe it was 3.1. I could be wrong, it might be 3.4. I can't recall right off the top of my head. So that's the way your taxes change. What we do here does not. It comes out of our operating budget. Now, if you notice, when I started on this board, our taxable value was 55 million. Now we're at 88 million. So we're bringing in more. The other way that increases is with house sales. If you sell a house to a non-family member, non-first blood, brother, sister, child, mother, father, that's first blood. Adopted is also first blood. Then it becomes uncapped. So if your cap taxable value is, say, $32,000 on a house, but the assessed value is $100,000, the new owners pay that $100,000. That's where their cap value is set. So it goes from your 36 to the new owners, you're gonna pay 100. Every time a house sells, it increases the income level of Manistee County, of Norman Township, down the line, okay? Yep. Yeah, and, you know, we do have, and you can call me after that later, but there are ways that there's exemptions out there. There is different programs out there that we can, you know, that I'm always here to try to help you if I can. So, anybody else? Nope. Okay, so I'm gonna close the public comment then. And we're gonna close the public hearing for the budget, and we're gonna go on to adopting the new 24-25 general fund budget. Okay? Alright, so I need a motion for the general fund amended budget. Last year's budget corrected to where we actually stand. Need a motion for that. All in favor? Aye. I need a motion for the general fund proposed budget proposal for for the next year. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, so now we're gonna do the same thing for fire fund budget, for the amended budget for the fire fund. All in favor? Aye. Okay, so the proposed 25-26 fire fund budget. All in favor? Aye. Okay, so the ambulance fund amended budget. All in favor? Okay. All right, so we did the ambulance fund amendment budget. Right now we're on our ambulance fund 2025-2026 ambulance fund budget proposal.
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Rubbish fund budget amendment.
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Rubbish fund proposed budget for 25-26.
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, so I need a motion to adjourn the public hearing, and we'll go on to the meeting.
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Okay, all right, so now the clerk and the supervisor will call the annual meeting to order. Hold on. I'll make a motion to approve the previous year's minutes. No, she said.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, so I'm sure a lot of folks are here for this page. Okay, so it was brought up to me last year about where, when we were doing this, we know what anybody else is, what other clerks are making, what other treasurers are making, things like that. So I have meetings, breakfast, informal meetings with other township supervisors. Gives us an opportunity to talk about, hey, what's going on in your township, what's working, what's not working. And 3 or 4 of us will get together and talk and just discuss what works. And they have been questioning me because we're one of the only townships that have ambulance billing, and they're wanting to get, a lot of them are wanting to get involved because it helps bring a little bit more funds to keep our fire and ambulance on solid. So in talking to them, they were very shocked at a township our size, what we were paying for our 3 elected officials for the job that we do. So the first page, if you see here, is the townships in Manistee County, okay? And the first page is put by alphabetical order. So you have your first column is township, your second column is whether they have a village or not. Then it's population, all year round population. Then taxable value for the township. And then you have what their supervisor, what their clerk gets paid, what their treasurer gets paid, what their trustees get paid. And then I know it's really hard to see, mine was pretty in color, I didn't want to spend all the color ink. The following is what they have and what they take care of. Meaning somebody like Brown Township, if you notice, their nose across the board. They don't have a fire department, they sub that out to Dixon Township. They don't have any cemeteries that they take care of. They don't really have any parks. They don't have they don't have cemeteries or parks. So all of that stuff, that board has very little. The ambulance, the fire, the cemetery, Parks and Rec take up a lot of our time, okay? It's a lot of extra work, a lot of extra, somebody alluded to the checks that are written, and the funds to be balanced. I mean, we are probably our biggest department we are equipped with fire and ambulance, right? By far. We are the only township in the county that operates an ambulance, which, when it comes to fire, is about 40 some runs a year. Ambulance is over 300 runs a year. We have to deal with trainings, we have to deal with equipment, we have to deal with a lot of those. So out of any township, we deal with more than any other one because of that ambulance. Okay. So if you go on to the next one, I tried to break this down because people are like, I didn't realize how far we were off. And other townships. So if you look at this next page here, and this is done by population. So Norman Township, everything for the small little township, but we're a double township. Only us and Dixon are 2 townships combined. So we are a 72 square miles, and most townships are a 36 square miles. Most townships are 6 miles by 6 miles square. We are 6 by 12, okay? So we are by population, we are the 4th largest. I believe by financial, we're the 5th largest. We're the 6th, okay? Way down at the bottom, Arcadia, they have all that lake money. They get quite a bit of income. And then what I did is I called all these townships and got what they pay their clerk, supervisor, and treasurer. Now, if you notice, in that top, Manistee Township, when I say yes, they have East Lake Village. When you have a village, you have another government that takes care of those people. So out of that population, some of that is in East Lake, not dealt with so much by the township. Filer does not necessarily have a village, but when I put the yes in there, Filer and Manistee Township both have either deputy clerks that work anywhere from 2 to 4 days a week, or deputy treasurers, or office managers. Filer has a full-time office manager, 4 days a week, okay? Bear Lake has a village. If you notice, Bear Lake, a large percentage of their houses are inside that village. Those people pay an additional tax. There's an additional government that takes care of them. So that comes out of that population. Maple Grove has a village of Callaway, has its own government. And Onekama has the village of Onekama. So the top 6 there, out of the top 6 townships in population, we're the only one that doesn't either have a village or a full-time office manager who's running their office. Okay. And you can look at the salary discrepancy. Now, this next one, and I'm sorry that it did not come out as great as I wanted it to, but this one, the first one is the supervisor salary. If you notice all the points, you have to go back over and see which supervisor is getting which money. But like $20,000, this first up is Arcadia. $27,000, which is the one all the way to the right, is Manistee Township. Okay? And then that red line, or the line that cuts through that, is something called a trend line. A trend line is a mathematical average to where you point on the grid by population what you should make for your township by population. So if you look at the supervisor's salary by a mathematical proof, it is $17,265. We decided to bring it to the 16 because really from the last raise that the supervisor has had, inflation was about 27% over the last 9 years. So we took the average of the two and put it at 16. The same is done with the clerk, or the treasurer is the next one. By the trend line, the treasurer should be at 20,720, and our treasurer is the star at 13. And if you notice, we are the farthest point away from that trend line. We are the farthest from the center of any township out there besides some of the ones that overpay compared to the trend line. Same with the supervisor right here where that's star. Okay? And then the final one is the clerk's pay, and by the trend line should be 22,500. Okay, but both of them agreed to the 18.9. Okay, so now that I've explained that and where I got those numbers from, does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
Is that average to like downstate?
This is average to Manistee County. Okay, downstate, you can't compare downstate to here. Some of the townships down there have more than our county has.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yes.
I have I'm gonna stand up so y'all can hear me. Go and block there.
This is, from what I understand, the question today is gonna be, hands. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know y'all, but I don't know who here is a Norman Township or Wellston resident and is a registered voter. Should this not be something that is voted on by voters?
It's not how it's by the electors. Meaning you are over 18, you are able to vote, but you do not have to be a registered voter.
So
This is
if all
the
these
meaning
people
of the
came in from Bear Lake, it'd be okay for them to raise their hand and say,
Well, they signed in there with their addresses and things like that.
That's what my address
Well, hopefully you're supposed to sign in right.
it's just ask their
There's no
name.
address,
Okay.
there's no address.
Well, hopefully you would. I mean, I don't know, but maybe this was,
Hopefully.
it could be made.
There were a lot of comments on what's been happening in Wilson, and I didn't read all of them, but a lot of them were from people who did not live in our township, and that is my concern. And I have personally not made a decision. There's a lot of great information you provided us, but my bigger concern is who is making a decision or who is giving you feedback on this, because it should be the people who are paying the taxes, which is the second question is, where the money comes from.
The money comes out of the general fund. Out of the general fund. Like I said, when I first sat on this board, our budget, our taxable value was 55 million. And we're at 88. So the budget increases, the responsibility increases since COVID. And you have to remember too, we are about, I want to say about 56 permanent residents, 56%. Our non-residents have a lot of questions for us, and we have a lot of duties to do with them too. Because we're about 2,800 parcels. So it's not just residents, but I broke it down by population. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Where does the money in the general fund come from?
It's actually budgeted in there right now.
Property taxes.
Okay, but where does it come from?
From property tax.
Okay,
But
so
these,
that's all of us.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, non-residents and residents, yeah.
Yeah. So when you answered her, it's actually from the property tax. That's where it's coming from.
Yeah, I don't.
You said that it's in the budget.
Oh, yeah, but the budget, our entire budget comes from property tax. The only part in this budget that doesn't is the special assessment for rubbish. Everything else is property tax. Yeah,
The other.
but it's
one
not
question-
raising property taxes, it's just, we have the room in the budget to do so.
Today, but this is in perpetuity, the increase, right?
In perpetuity, what do you?
If you're gonna raise the rate, it's not gonna be for this year, it'll be,
It'll start in July.
and go on forever. So you have room in the budget today, but do we know if we'll have room in the budget in 10 years?
Well, taxable value, I've never seen taxable value decrease. Taxable value doesn't decrease. I've never seen it. Well, I shouldn't say it. 2008 it decreased for a little bit. There was one little bit. But we have, yeah.
Question comparing salaries. Okama, Onekama, excuse me. Their property value is more than double ours.
Yes.
That's why they can afford the higher salaries. We can't, because we don't have that revenue. We don't have the property values that they do.
But property value doesn't collate to amount of wood that has to be done.
That relates to where the money
Okay,
comes from.
okay, then another question would be, why do you three have this position? Was it to serve the community, or was it to serve yourself?
No, it's a certain community, this isn't even
Okay.
close, if this money, I don't think any of us would agree that this is self-serving at all. It's just getting it to, no, let's, everybody, all questions are devoted to, I thank you, but all questions are directed towards us, we're not gonna have any, I don't want any disgruntled between the population, everybody has the right to their opinion. 16 grand for the amount of time that I put in here. I'll tell you, I was on vacation, I was on an education first trip. I took 17 text messages, 11 emails, and 9 phone calls, and I wasn't even on this time. That was my vacation. I get called on Sunday. My child's graduation party, the big one back there, and my other one, their graduation parties this year, somebody pulled up during the graduation party and thought it was okay with a crowd of people at my house to ask me a question. So, it's not, oh, this is justified for the amount of money, time that we spend. The amount of responsibility and the amount of questions that we take, the amount of work that this is, it's not even close to that number being sufficient.
I believe that. I believe it.
So what I'm saying is, it's just to get us to the norm. It's to get us to the norm. I was asked this question by the previous clerk, what does everybody else make? And I found it out this year. And I was shocked that we were so far under. And it was kind of laughable with some of the other townships, and especially the clerks, where like, with this new election rules, we had all that 9 days of early voting for an ISD millage for one question. That cost this township, I want to say, please don't misquote, I thought it was $1,800. For that one question, it was $1,800 that cost you taxpayers to secure an election that was already, in my opinion only, was already secure. We have computer systems, and we have to buy, for all of you, you're gonna have to buy all new election machines. That's gonna be another big amount of money. We are the people that take care of these. And this, we are not asking to be paid adequately for our services. We're just asking to be paid somewhere near. Did you even ask who's the most expensive clerk out there? Is it Diane? Yeah, 33. Great clerk for Manistee Township, 33,000. If you were to ask her, is $33,000 enough for what she does? No. She's there 5 to 6 days a week. She's there 40, 60 hours a week, plus she has a full-time deputy. So, you know what I'm saying, but they're a bigger township. They're 3,000 plus residents. I mean.
And I believe you don't get paid for what you're worth.
So it's not about self-serving, and for years, we thought that way. For years, Mary Soul was a clerk here for years, and it's not about adequately being funded for the job you do. It's just having the monetary value be somewhat respectful. 50% maybe? Yeah, go
Do you
ahead.
recognize that it's hard for people who are on a fixed income to swallow a 28% pay increase, even if it is like?
You're right, this should have been done over the Norman Township, like Onekma, Onekma does a cost of living raise every year. So this year they got a 3.1, last year they got a 5 point, they get those raises every year. We don't have that set up for us.
No, and you
So
should,
we're trying
because
to-
you should have, you've been
and-
cheated, so like, I feel like you feel like you've been cheated, so now you need to make up for it in one fell swoop, and I'm afraid you're setting a really poor precedent for the future. It might be more manageable to say, okay, we didn't do what we should have done for the last 10 years, but now going forward, we need to make this right and make a more accurate increase to our wages without trying to accommodate for the past.
Well, this is getting.
You'll never get what you're worth. I
No,
know
but
that.
this is getting us close to accurate. If we were to do 2 or 3% every year, we could never get there.
You're right, you could never get there.
Yeah. Once again,
I mean, I got a right to my opinion,
Yeah, no,
and I
and
just
we-
have a question. I mean, it's really hard for us to swallow. When I Google what is an adequate pay raise, it doesn't tell me
for the last 10 years, if you've been cheated, this is adequate. It says 3 to 5%
So, but
in
you've
this
all
economic
benefited
curve.
from us not having those salaries in the last 10 or 15. Actually, I make $100 more than Brooke Schaefer did. What would that be, 32 years?
Right.
$100 more than he did 32 years ago. So if I started at 10 years ago when I started this position, or 9 years ago when I started this position, I'm really making $6,000 compared
Yeah.
to what I presently.
Agree.
So
You're not
we're
gonna
trying
get
to
what you were.
correct. We're trying to correct that.
But
and
you
maybe-
do realize that it's just really hard to
I
swallow
get it.
that.
And I knew it was gonna be.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it makes no sense to just do 1,000 this year and 1,000. I mean, how would it feel after 3 years? Oh, they want another $1,000? You know what I'm saying? It's kind of one of
Well,
those things
I know
where-
when I took a job, I took the job at the rate they were offering it.
Yep, but we're trying to correct it, and I see smiles on some people's faces that are just being vindictive, and that's fine. Go ahead.
Did you know what the pay was before you ran for election?
Sure did. Yep. I didn't know what everybody else was making, so that was why I'm trying to do this one.
On these numbers on here, it says that supervisor gets paid $10,800.
Yes.
And on here, it says supervisor gets paid $12,000, and then the proposed budget,
What's,
$20,000.
where are you seeing that?
It's the cost of the.
Okay, no, that's our department.
I'm just-
No, that's the department cost.
So I'm just trying to figure out why all these numbers are different.
If you look inside that, you will see okay, you have to break it down to what, if you look at that, if you go back to this one, and you look at the supervisors, let's see what it's at. If you look at page 3, the supervisor is 10.8. All the others are different costs. Deputy supervisor's wage, supervisor's FICA.
Those are all in it too, I guess.
Yeah, it's done by department. So that
it's
line
not
item is
just
here.
one person.
No, no.
Got it.
Yeah. Nikki?
So I guess what the underlying question is if you're trying to correct now from what has been missed in the past, what happens 5 years down the road from now? You're
I'm
gonna
hoping
go,
we'll
hang on, you're gonna go next year, we're good. Next year after that, you're gonna, no, we don't need a raise. No, we don't need a raise the year after that, but year 5, you're gonna come and hit us with another big percentage
I'm hoping
increase?
maybe we can implement a cost of living to be standard, inflation rate.
Well, my concern is that, again, somebody mentioned our senior population, they only got a 2.5 increase. I'm not against any raises, okay? But this amount is over the top.
Well, like I said, we're trying to correct where we're at, and I think we can. Joanne?
So, we all know that these raises are significant.
Speak up, please.
If approved, they're gonna have a significant impact on the annual budget, requiring about $15,000 annually and a total of approximately $60,000 for the next 4 years. It's important to remember that such increases, once approved by electors, cannot be decreased in subsequent years, and there's potential for additional increases annually. Personally, I support raises that are compatible to those in local communities with the same overall responsibilities that may include other tasks, are considered annually and applied equitably to all officials and employees. I would propose that the board consider smaller annual increases for the 25-26 budget and future annual increases to address any shortcomings going forward. This approach could provide more financial flexibility within the budget for other community opportunities. And I really don't think it's appropriate for you to say that anybody who smiles is, what was the term?
Vindictive.
Vindictive. I think that's inappropriate.
Yes, but you're gone.
So I understand that this budget increase might seem like, you know, a huge shock to some and whatever. I mean, I guess, am I incorrect in my thought that you guys are just trying to kind of bring Norman Township up to the same level as the communities around us? Is there a plan in place at this point in time to maintain that so that we don't get hit with another huge raise that everyone seems to be having such a
Yes,
a
we would
problem
like to
with?
do
And I understand.
standard percentage every year.
I mean, I understand,
If
you
it's
know.
1%, then it's 1%. If it's 3%, it's 3%. We
Right.
can max it at 3%. I have no problem putting a max on it.
I mean, I understand that, you know, seniors and people on fixed incomes and stuff, you know, didn't get a 25 or 40% raise or whatever, but I feel like that's not, unfortunately, that's not our problem, that's more of a federal problem or a state problem versus a local.
And once again, our raises don't affect, it doesn't cause anybody's taxes to go up. So we have no control over where they go up. Yes, sir?
How did we fall so far behind everybody else?
Wanting to save and always looking at penny pinching budget and tradition. Honestly, it was, when I took over the clerk, that told the clerk and treasurer at the time, it was a thing we did. Norman Township has had, an increase in a lot of new homes, a lot of homes being sold, a lot of properties being broke up, and we've increased our taxable value, like I said, in the last 16 years, from 55 million to 88 million. If you look at Dixon Township, they're at the taxable value, now they're a double township just like us, they're at the taxable value for their township that Norman was 20 years ago, okay? And their supervisor is 12-7, see what I'm saying? And they don't have an ambulance service. They don't have they have one cemetery, not three. Just a lot of that other, and you can ask anybody in our fire department, our ambulance service is like having 3 firefighters. Thank you. Yes, sir.
This is an important meeting. There's no notice on the boards, not here at this meeting. There wasn't a notice on our message boards, on our phones, until less than 24 hours before this meeting.
Okay.
And the only notice that I saw was by accident when somebody handed me a free newspaper in the grocery store. So why was this meeting not
The meeting
published?
was posted last year.
Amen.
It's always, the annual meeting is always the last Saturday before the end of your.
So that means you don't
It's a
need to
secret.
say, remember the annual meeting?
It's posted out on the bulletin board.
It's not
Which bulletin? Not out here?
inside.
And I would just like to mention that I probably get 17 text messages every day. So getting them on vacations doesn't bother me.
Who else? Yes, sir.
So that's the only way that you've notified the community is put it out here on the board?
No.
Where is the community? Because there's a hell of a lot more people than this. Nobody knows about it?
I've been now to 17 annual meetings. Up until last year, we've never had one, because we've never had a forum of the public. Nobody's ever showed up. We've been doing this for the last 30-some years.
Yeah, look at all the people that showed up when it was,
Yeah.
people started talking about it.
It used to be there was
Last
top
Saturday
of
every year, or
ambulances
last
at
Saturday
a
every year.
township meeting from what I
Yes, I'm
know.
under the understanding that this is well raised property tax. And it will raise property taxes.
No, your property taxes will go up next year by the rate of inflation. There's nothing that we can do outside of a special assessment. And that's why you're getting those 2 letters that are confusing everybody.
Yeah.
That is just a tax renewal, that's all that is.
So you're going to come up with these extra wages through the general fund and distribute this.
We have it in the general fund because of the amount of increases we have over the last 10 years. Yes, you in the back.
So we can expect a 5% increase in our taxes, plus the added assessment for the rubbish?
No. 5%, okay, that is not a township law, that is a state of Michigan law.
Got it.
5%, the Headley Act, which passed, and everybody that was able to vote in 1994 passed, that created 2 different values, okay? Passed cap taxable and assessed, okay? And your cap taxable can only change by 2 ways. If you add something new, man-made new, or by the rate of inflation every year. So if nothing sells, nobody adds anything new, and gas goes up 1%, your taxes are gonna go up 1% in a very layman's way to say it, to pay for the increased cost of the county plot. That's what it says. Those are the only 2 ways. 5% is the max your tax can go up anywhere. So like 3 years ago when we had 7.9%, the county took a 2.9% hit. The township took a 2.9% hit to our budget because the most that the state increases taxes is 5%. See what I'm saying? So if we had superinflation with 20%, so most of your taxes can go up as 5%. That's state law.
By lifting that 5%, is that gonna bring you up to the comparable levels that you see?
The 5%.
Well, if the rate of inflation doesn't,
2 different things.
Okay, all right. then
Two different,
we'll take it
one's
here.
property taxes, but we're doing something different, yes, go ahead. Oh, yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, to the board, because people have a hard time understanding when they get these really big numbers, it's hard to put those in perspective. I think maybe it would have been a little better, more palatable for the public to maybe do this twice instead of one big lump. But, with that said, I wrote it down here, I think that would have been more palatable to the public's information to reach your tables in smaller increments in a period of time. But to the public, I have to say, I've lived here for 30+ years, I've never seen a supervisor out in the park doing what he does. Raking, mowing, keeping it clean, we can see the lake now, it looks really nice. So we have had, obviously, I just learned a lot of free service for the last few years, so thank you for that. Yep, raking,